AMC, the movie people, what is the future of this stock? Is it time to buy? Are we ready to rise from the ashes? Find out in this AMC stock update. Check it out. Let's go. Well, hello, everybody. It is Jeremy Whaley here from Trade Maestro. Check us out over at trademaestro.com if you've not done so already. I want to talk about AMC today. Yes, the movie people, AMC stock. You might remember about a year and a half ago, this was one of the stocks that was caught up with all the Wall Street bet stuff and the GameStop and all that stuff. And, you know, it has had a lot of hype around it. But it's been a stock that's kind of been a sleeper. Most people haven't really been dealing a whole lot with it up until kind of all the attention got put on it. And for the most part, it's not one we've paid a lot of attention to, but I was just flipping through some charts today and I was like, oh my goodness, we might have a trading opportunity on AMC. So I wanted to discuss it here and share it with you. Check out the chart here. You're going to see, let me scoot this over. Actually, I'm going to stay zoomed out here for a minute while I put my glasses on so I can see a little bit better. If you come back to 2021, you see where all the hype started to build. And of course, a lot of people got all excited about AMC. And then we ultimately rallied from about $12 a share all the way up here to 64 plus. Oops, that was supposed to be a plus sign. Anyway, we rallied all the way up here to more than $64 a share. And since that time, for the most part, it's just fizzled and fazzled its way back down, which is kind of what people expected to happen. But I'm going to draw a line in here, and you're going to see something interesting. I'm going to draw a line right here. We can call it a support line. For those of you who are not familiar with the way that I teach or the way that I trade, we work a lot with these critical pivot areas that we call support and resistance. And you see in here that AMC has been building a support right around that $12 point. So this is really right around where it was before all the hype had come into it. And we're building this now. We're using this as a place to start basing and start to build from. Now, what I find very interesting about this is if you zoom in on where we are right now, we're getting a buy signal. Yep, I said it. We're getting a signal that says that AMC could be a good opportunity to buy. You say, how is that a buy signal? Well, number one, we're above the moving averages. Okay, so that's the first signal that you see here. Second signal is the moving averages are crossing, and they're crossing to the upward direction here. Okay, and number three, you actually have a good angle to these moving averages, which suggests that it's a trend, not just a breakout. Now, you know, there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee that something's going to be a trend and it's not going to be, you know, some sort of a whipsaw. Let me kind of play the opposite side of this a little bit so you can see some of the other things that could take place on this trade. If I look over here, I got a couple things I need to bring your awareness to. Number one, down at the bottom, you see my Stochastics Indicator. And I hope you can see that. I realize that sometimes on YouTube and the internet, it's hard to see. But our Stochastics is very much overbought. And it's actually starting to cross down just a little bit. So that could be a problem. It could be a substantial problem for us here on AMC. However, it doesn't have to be a problem because what you're going to discover if you track enough of these bullish breakouts like this. Let's see if I can find a good example. Well, I don't really have a good example. I can show you a bearish version on this stock. You can see back here, what was this, in 2020, you can see when AMC got into a prolonged bearish trend, and you can see how we became oversold and we stayed oversold. You see that? The same thing can happen in a bullish trend. When the trend is going higher, you can get overbought and you can potentially stay overbought. And typically when that happens, you stay overbought for anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. Eventually it has to ease up a little bit. You just need to understand that easing up does not mean it has to go down. It just means it needs to lose the momentum. More likely what's going to happen if this breaks out the way that it's looking like it is, if the trend begins, most likely what's going to happen is it's actually going to kind of come back down, make contact or even trade slightly below these moving averages and then turn and make the move. And that would be an exceptional buying opportunity for almost any stock. just from a pure pattern standpoint. That brings me to my next concern, and this could go either way. That is your earnings announcement. Earnings are coming up here first week of August, and earnings can go either way. Some people like to trade over earnings. Some people prefer not to trade over earnings. Depending on if it's a good earnings announcement or a bad one, it could really change whether or not this is going to fly and take off or not. But from a pure standpoint of trade setup, forgetting the earnings capacity or aspect of this is actually setting up for a really nice potential for a bullish trend. So with that in mind, where would this go? If we were to take this trade on AMC, where is the potential for this trade to trade up to? And the answer is we're going to look to our left and we're going to look for our most recent peaks. So let me kind of scale this down here a little bit. And our next most recent peak is up here around $30 a share, folks. That's 100% gain almost. I mean, this trade right now is at $17. It's at $17 right now. And our next major target is all the way up here at $30. Okay, so that's almost 100% gain. Would it be worth it to maybe consider this trade? I think it's definitely worth considering the trade, even though as a whole, I'm pretty bearish on the market right now. But this is just a trade that happens to be setting up really nicely for a potential bullish trade. The other thing to be aware of, as I've already mentioned, be aware of this overbought indication here. Most likely, if the trend shapes up like a traditional bullish trend, it will actually come back down, ease that stochastics just a little bit, maybe down to around the 50% range, and then make the turn. That is the ideal buying spot, but it doesn't have to. It can stay overbought. So if the trend keeps going, maybe you might consider taking the trade. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you got the earnings thing to be aware of. So those are kind of the concerns that I have about it. But definitely, if you've been tracking AMC and you've been thinking that this could be a trade that you want to get into, or maybe you've been thinking that it's a stock, you're just curious about the story that goes with it and where things might go, well, there's a little update for you. And for the first time, literally, the last year and a half, I've not done any trade setups on this where I'm like, oh, that could actually work. I'm actually doing a trade setup on it and telling you this could actually work. In fact, I'll go so far as to draw it out for you here. If you want, I use a little tool here in TradingView with a long position here, and I would put an entry right around about 1880. If you've never watched me trade, then that's probably counterintuitive for you, because most people, whenever they take a trade, most people try to get in at the cheapest price. I don't do that because I'm primarily an options trader. I get in as the trade's moving, so I buy on an uptick almost every time. And so my entry price for this would be about $18.80. Maybe if you want to give yourself a little cushion, maybe even take it on up to $19. And then my target, as I said, is going to be up here around $30 a share. And I'm going to set a stop in here right around currently my 50-period moving average, which is $14.50 for this trade setup. So $14.50 for my stop. Now you guys can decide if that's how you want to do it. This is how I would do the trade setup. And here's the cool thing. That's a 2.42 to 1 reward to risk ratio. You can place those trades all day. That's just a really great reward to risk ratio if the trade plays out the way we want it to. And if it doesn't, then it'll be a bummer, but at least it was a good setup. You can't win all of them, but if you do the right trade setups and you get a 60-70% win ratio, and you have a good reward to risk ratio like this right here that I've just set up for you, then obviously you're going to make money over time. And that's the key. That's the critical thing that we want to do as traders, is to make money over time. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you'd like to learn more, check us out over at trademaestro.com. Trademaestro.com. We've got all sorts of training to help you learn not just about how the market works, but how to time your entries, how to time your exits, how to do the trade setups like I just did for you here on AMC. One of the reasons that people get into stocks like AMC and GameStop and some of these trades that were being really pushed as kind of meme stocks about a year ago, the reason they get into them is because they're just following the hype, but they don't really know whether they should get into it. They don't know if it's a good idea. They don't actually understand. I teach you how to look at a trade, do an analysis, and know if this trade actually has a chance of going anywhere, if it's a bad trade. In fact, I have a whole challenge on it called the Pick Winning Stocks Challenge. It's a 21-day challenge that will teach you everything you need, everything I just taught you here, It will teach you all of that, as well as risk and reward management. It'll teach you strategies and all sorts of great stuff. And so that's over on my website over at trademaestro.com. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to YouTube here, then please get yourself subscribed to the channel so you can get more updates like this one. I do market updates every week, do crypto updates, and we do all sorts of stuff, including some 3-day challenges and other great stuff. So get yourself signed up right here on YouTube so you can get all of the alerts. And if you haven't checked it out yet, go over to our website, trademaestro.com. Hope this has been helpful for you. Hope you've learned something. And until next time, happy trading.